Konami Code Legacy. In 1986, a Konami developer was playtesting his own game, Gradius, when he realized something terrifying. The game was so brutally difficult that even he, the creator, couldn't beat it. So he did what any frustrated programmer would do. He created a cheat code to give himself an edge, a specific series of buttons pushed that gave him 30 lives instantly. He planned to remove the code before release, but somehow it slipped through. When players discovered it, they went absolutely crazy. The code didn't just work in Gradius. Konami had been secretly including it in dozens of their games. Contra players could get 30 lives, other games unlocked special powers, and some titles revealed entirely hidden content. What nobody realized was that this accidental oversight had created gaming's most famous secret. The Konami code became so legendary that other companies started including it in their own games as tribute. Netflix even programmed it into their interface. Try it on their homepage and watch what happens. But here's the twist that shocked everyone. In 2020, the developer finally admitted in an interview that leaving the code in wasn't an accident. He deliberately kept it hidden from his bosses, knowing players would love having a secret advantage. The most famous cheat code in gaming history was actually another act of programmer rebellion. Adventure. Back in 1979, programmer Warren Robinett was working at Atari on Adventure, but he had a massive problem. Atari banned developers from getting any credit for their work. They treated programmers like disposable factory workers rather than creative minds behind million-dollar games. Warren was absolutely fed up. He poured everything into Adventure, creating an entire fantasy world, but Atari would never acknowledge he existed. So he pulled off something that changed gaming forever. He secretly hid his name inside the game. Deep in the code, accessible only through specific actions, Warren created a hidden room displaying "Created by Warren Robinett." This was pure rebellion. Warren had hacked his own game to claim credit, and Atari was completely clueless. The message sat undetected for months until 12-year-old Adam Clayton discovered it. When he contacted Atari, executives were initially furious about the betrayal, but the players absolutely loved it. They thought hidden messages were incredible, and suddenly everyone was hunting for secrets. Atari realized they'd accidentally created the first Easter egg in gaming history. One programmer's desperate act of recognition had birthed an entire culture that would define gaming forever. Developers' revenge. After Warren's rebellion opened the floodgates, programmers everywhere started using hidden messages as their secret weapon against corporate control. These developers were getting creative with their revenge. In 1982, a group of frustrated Activision programmers decided to turn their game into a recruiting tool. They buried messages deep in their code that essentially said, "Hey, if you're skilled enough to find this, we want to hire you." Not simple advertised job postings. These were secret tests hidden where only the most dedicated gamers would discover them. Companies had no idea their own products were being used to recruit talent. The practice exploded throughout the 80s and 90s. Programmers would sneak in their initials, full names, or even entire development team rosters. Some got bold enough to include their personal phone numbers or addresses, basically turning games into underground business cards. One infamous case involved a developer who hid his entire resume in a racing game's code, complete with his qualifications and contact information. What made this even more genius was the timing. Most of these messages were discovered years after the games launched, when developers had already moved on to different companies. By then, it was too late for executives to do anything about it. The digital rebellion had become unstoppable. Enraged programmers. While some developers used hidden messages for self-promotion, others had a much darker purpose, venting their absolute rage about working conditions. Far from polite complaints, they were full-blown digital meltdowns buried in code. One of the most interesting cases involved a programmer who had been forced to work 80-hour weeks for months without overtime pay. Deep in his game's files, he left a message that was essentially a profanity-filled rant about his boss, calling him every name in the book. The message included specific details about the company's terrible treatment of employees, complete with censored curse words that would make a sailor look innocent. Another developer, fed up with constant deadline changes, hid a message that read, "This game was rushed to market by greedy executives who don't care about quality." The message went on to expose specific instances of corner cutting and poor management decisions that had ruined the final product. These angry messages became time bombs. Some weren't discovered until decades later, when former employees had moved on and couldn't be punished. Gaming forums would explode with discussions about these hidden rants, turning them into legendary pieces of industry gossip. The messages gave players a rare glimpse into the brutal reality behind their favorite games, and developers finally got their revenge. Private messages gone public. The most chilling discovery came when data miners realized some developers never intended for their messages to be found at all. Unlike the Easter eggs intended for players, some left digital diary entries, personal confessions, and secrets that were supposed to stay buried forever. In 2003, hackers digging through the old RPG's code stumbled upon what appeared to be a developer's personal therapy session. Hidden and unused game files was a rambling message about the programmer's struggles with depression, his failing marriage, and how creating this fantasy world was the only thing keeping him sane. The message was dated and included personal details that were never meant for public consumption. Another shocking discovery involved a racing game from the 90s where a developer had hidden a detailed account of workplace harassment he'd witnessed. The message named specific individuals, described incidents in graphic detail, and essentially served as a digital whistleblower report that nobody was supposed to read. What made these findings so disturbing was their raw honesty. These weren't carefully crafted statements. They were unfiltered thoughts from people who assumed their words would die with the code. When gaming communities discovered these deeply personal messages years later, it sparked intense debates about digital privacy and whether these confessions should have remained hidden forever. Modern digital archaeology. Today's gamers have turned finding hidden messages into a full-blown science. Data miners armed with sophisticated tools are tearing through game files like digital archaeologists, uncovering secrets that developers thought were buried forever. These modern treasure hunters completely dissect the games. Using hex editors, code analyzers, and reverse engineering software, they can examine every single byte of data. What used to take decades to discover now gets found within hours of a game's release. Some data miners have even created automated tools that scan for hidden text patterns, making the search process lightning fast. The most shocking discoveries happen when miners dig through games that are 20 or even 30 years old. In 2019, a team found a hidden message in a 1994 fighting game that had been sitting undetected for 25 years. The message contained a programmer's prediction about the future of gaming that turned out to be incredibly accurate. But this digital archaeology has a dark side. Miners have exposed messages that were never meant to be public, including personal information, company secrets, and content that could destroy careers. Gaming companies now live in constant fear that their employees' hidden messages will be discovered and leaked online. The cat and mouse game between developers and data miners has become more intense than ever. Dark side of hidden messages. Not all hidden messages were innocent fun. Some developers used their secret access to sneak in content that would have gotten them fired instantly. They were inappropriate, offensive, sometimes downright disturbing discoveries that shocked the gaming world. One of the most infamous cases involved a children's game from the early 90s where a disgruntled programmer hid explicit images deep in the code. Parents were horrified when the content was discovered years later, realizing their kids had been playing a game containing hidden adult material. The scandal destroyed the developer's career and triggered massive lawsuits. Another shocking discovery involved racist messages hidden in a popular arcade game. The programmer had embedded slurs and offensive jokes throughout the code, turning what appeared to be a family-friendly game into a vessel for hate speech. When gaming communities uncovered these messages, it sparked industry-wide discussions about content oversight. Some developers went even further, hiding messages that mocked players or contained threats. One particularly disturbing find included a programmer's detailed fantasies about harming his coworkers, complete with specific names and methods. These discoveries revealed the dangerous potential of giving angry, unstable individuals unrestricted access to hide whatever they wanted in games that millions would play. Corporate whistleblowing. Some of the most explosive hidden messages weren't personal rants. They were corporate bombshells that exposed industry scandals from the inside. Developers started using games as digital drop boxes for secrets that could destroy entire companies. In 2001, a programmer working on a major racing franchise hid detailed information about his company's illegal accounting practices. The message included specific financial figures, names of executives involved, and evidence of tax evasion that would later become crucial in a federal investigation. The developer had essentially turned his game into a whistleblower protection system. Another devastating case involved a message hidden in a popular RPG that exposed widespread sexual harassment at the development studio. The programmer had documented incidents, recorded conversations, and even included email screenshots, all buried in the game's code. When the message was discovered 3 years later, it triggered a massive scandal that brought down several high-ranking executives. The most shocking revelation came from a message that exposed how a major publisher was deliberately releasing broken games to meet holiday deadlines. The hidden text included internal emails showing executives knew about game-breaking bugs, but chose to ship anyway. When players found this message, it sparked industry-wide boycotts and forever changed how gamers viewed corporate promises about game quality. Love letters. Behind all the corporate rebellion and angry rants, some developers used hidden messages for something completely different. Deeply personal declarations of love, family dedications, and heartfelt confessions that revealed their humanity. One of the most touching discoveries involved a programmer who hid a love letter to his girlfriend in a fantasy RPG. The message described how meeting her had changed his life and included a digital marriage proposal complete with beautiful flowers. When data miners found it years later, they tracked down the couple and discovered they'd actually gotten married. The hidden proposal had become gaming's most romantic secret. Another emotional find was a message from a developer dedicating his racing game to his deceased father. Hidden in the code was a heartfelt tribute describing how his dad had taught him to love cars and programming. The message included personal memories and ended with, "This one's for you, Pop." When the gaming community discovered it, the story went viral and brought players to tears. Some messages were confessions of personal struggles. One developer hid a note about overcoming addiction, crediting his team for supporting him through recovery. These hidden gems transformed cold code into windows of human vulnerability. The phantom messages. The most maddening hidden messages are the ones that might not even exist. Legendary secrets that have driven gamers absolutely insane for decades, sparking endless debates and obsessive searching campaigns. The most famous phantom is the rumored message in Super Mario 64 that supposedly reveals the real story behind Princess Peach's castle. Thousands of players have spent countless hours trying every possible combination of movements, convinced that Nintendo hid a dark secret about the game's true meaning. Despite years of data mining and code analysis, nothing has ever been found, but believers refuse to give up. Another legendary phantom involves a fighting game where players swear there's a hidden message from a developer who allegedly died during production. The rumor claims he left a final goodbye buried somewhere in the character selection screen. Gaming forums still explode with new theories about how to access it, even though most experts believe it's complete nonsense. The most frustrating phantom messages are the ones developers themselves hint at but never confirm. One programmer recently tweeted that he hid something special in his 2018 indie game, but provided no other clues. The gaming community has been tearing the game apart for 5 years, finding nothing but still convinced the secret exists. These phantom messages prove that sometimes the most powerful hidden content is the kind that lives only in players' imaginations. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.